Hey everybody, welcome back to another AMA roundup for MechWarrior 5. This is session 3 and was based on the AI for questions this time. So we'll just kick right off into it. So first question was, in regards to AI difficulty, how will it become more threatening to the player over the course of the campaign? Will it just be based on the equipment or mechs, or do they have skill that visibly improves? They said there's a few different ways. Apparently individual units will become better, more accurate, have better heat management. Earlier in the campaign, these enemies will be more green in their skill levels, i.e. they'll be missing more shots and that kind of thing and overheating themselves, but later on they're more skilled and thus deadly. Enemy numbers will also become larger, including more vehicles and more enemy mechs as your missions continue to scale in difficulty as your rep increases. Next question, how will the skill progression of employed pilots impact AI behavior? For example, will increased piloting skill mean the mech will bump into things less, or are there other effects like becoming better at taking cover? Apparently, employed pilots will be able to gain skills and improvements over time as they fight battles. Essentially, they will gain similar improvements to enemy AI. Post-missions, you will have a summary screen where you will see what skills have improved. To go a little more into this, and it'll probably cover a few of the other questions anyway, the way they've described it is that similar to the FTL game that some people may have played, every action is an improvement on skill, or similar to certain older Elder Scrolls games, the more you fire a particular weapon, like a medium laser, the AI will increase in their skill using that weapon. And whether they hit or miss, it doesn't matter. As long as they're firing it, they're gaining a small increment of improvement in there, and that covers all of their things. If they dodge more shots, they become better at dodging shots. If they use their jump jets more, they become better at using jump jets. If they overheat, apparently they will learn how to better manage their heat, so they know when they're firing specific weapons in the loadout, they won't over fire and thus power down. All these kind of things apparently you'll have a screen. It'd be nice to see a screenshot of this. Next question, how does pathfinding work, or how is it intended to work? As a clarification, I'm thinking more on the lines of object detection and avoidance rather than along the lines of scripting. How willing is the AI to make elevation change? How will they weigh their decision of smashing through a building? Will they ever choose to deliberately ram you? This was a longer answer. What I put down was the AI will try to figure out where it should be in relation to every other unit in the world. So in a 4v4 firefight, 4 of enemies, 4 of you and your AI, each individual AI will try to find the best position for itself, taking into account their angle, where it wants to hit, where it doesn't want to be hit, how close it needs to be to use its weapons. An example is an Atlas will try to stay close to the leader of the lance, but will try to close for the best range for damage potential. AI will try to remain within this distance of the lance leader and then try to take the best route to their target, taking into account their height, the angle, damage to the target currently. If they need to, they are aware that they can smash through buildings, but if they're aware that the structure is friendly to them, as in it's a base that they're protecting, they won't smash through those buildings because it can use that as cover, whereas your AI, for instance, will smash through the building because it's not something they need to take into account. Aggressive units will, however, run straight through buildings if they can. However, if there's a door into a base, they will try to use the entrance rather than just blowing the wall up, that kind of thing. So, quite interesting. Will we get to adjust how aggressive or passive lancemates can be? Apparently, lancemates will not have personalities per se. They don't have anywhere close to what would be described as MechWarrior 3's AI, or what you'd see in Battletech with them having specific voices, that kind of thing. Their personality will basically be dictated based on their skill ratings. So a particularly good pilot that's good at dodging in a light mech, their personality is that they're really good at dodging shots. They follow orders without question if you give them, so you won't get an issue where they will disregard orders. And there are no stance system. You can't set them to aggressive, neutral, passive, that kind of thing. They just act on a very basic set of options, i.e. attack my target, follow me, hold position, that kind of thing. Would it be possible to incorporate a ping system similar to what we have in Apex Legends and have more contextual pings? I know what they mean here. I've not played Apex, but I know the idea is that if you highlight a downed friendly in your squad, it will change the ping to revive or protect that person, that kind of thing. So it has a dynamic switch. Apparently, no. It will not have anything like this. This is something they haven't even looked at. They haven't looked at Apex Legends or any other games that kind of inspiration. So Will the AI have any sort of morale system? Might enemy units surrender or attempt to flee depending on conditions, or will they always fight to the death? Russ read this because the person who typed it typed moral system, not morale. So Russ thought they were asking whether they would have any kind of morals. Obviously they don't, they're AI. They will have a morale system, but they're not. They didn't really want to go in depth about how that system will work, but I guess we can assume they will have some element of retreat. Will AI vehicles focus fire on the player or threats? Now, this is another one that covers... The answer covers quite a few other questions. They do go back to this because it's relatively straightforward. The AI will have an aggro system. And the more damage you do as a player to... Say you blow up 4 vehicles in a row. The aggro will pass to you, and that means that the AI enemies will focus fire on you more than they will on your lancemates. Whereas if your lancemates then one of your lancemates starts doing more damage to the enemy, the aggro will switch to them. So you can, as an example, as say a group of 4 players, they could switch the aggro and spread damage by having the first player doing a lot of damage and then the next player doing a lot of damage, and the AI will constantly switch to those different targets. I don't think this means it will be a blanket system where every unit will just fire on you. I think it means within a certain radius of each other, or if it's a lance, the lance will try and focus on you, whereas another lance of enemies will focus on a target that's most threatening to them. It seems to be a bit more nuanced, but as a basic, there's this aggro system that will alter how the AI will react to different stimuli from damage. Is the AI moddable, and what kind of variables? They wanted to keep this for a modding AMA. The AI does, however, not have a perfect intelligence on where you are, as they asked, would the AI have an omniscience about your location and how much damage you've taken. Apparently, the AI will only react based on a set of sensor information that they're given. So if you're spotted by a target or an installation or something like that, and other units are within that AI's cone or field of intel, they can pass it on. If they aren't, then they won't know that you're there. Will the AI lancemates behave differently depending on loadouts of their mech? I.e., will LRM boats stay behind formation? Will ECM mechs stay near allies? Yes, though it is dependent on the loadout. So they like to use catapults, for instance. A catapult majorly will use its LRMs because that's its most powerful weapon at range, and it will fire them at the sort of back of your lance, or the enemies will do the same. Whereas a mech like a Hunchback will try to close the distance because its most powerful weapon is an AC-20. But obviously different variants will have different loadouts, so an awesome that uses PPCs will act differently to an awesome that uses LRMs, for instance. They'll both try to use different ranges. Will AI work independently, or can we expect them to work together? For example, if there are 4 enemy mechs in a city and the player engages 1, can we expect the others to come and help that one that's under attack? Apparently, the AI will work independently and together situationally. If the entire player lance attacks one target, that target then reacts to the fight, and the friendlies within that lance will move to assist. It's based on the whole AI sensor info thing I mentioned before. So the AI will have trouble performing certain actions depending on the location. So they won't try to flank you. They don't have that level of depth. But they will try and maneuver around objects to get to the friendly that's under attack as best they can. If that means they could smash through objects, they will. But if they're forced to, they may have to go around a longer route if they, say, can't smash through a specific building, or if there's part of a mountain range in the way, that kind of thing. There was a question about trying to withdraw or save itself, but that was skipped. Does the AI behave differently or better depending on who you're fighting? Like, will random pirates be as good as fighting, say, the First Sword of Light? Story missions can have unique mechanics, apparently, like coming up against an elite foe, such as that, and they will be tougher. But on average, if you encounter pirates, they're going to have much weaker units, equipment, and skill sets. So pirates should be a lot easier to defeat than a crack mercenary unit, say like Grey Death, for instance. But that, by the way, that isn't a confirmation of these units appearing. It was just part of the question and some of the answers. How will the AI focus targets in your lancemates? This comes back to the aggro system. Lancemates will try to prioritize enemies firing on them rather than ignoring that and firing on the enemies firing you. So basically, if you tell it to fire on my target and he starts taking a lot of damage from 2 enemy mechs, he will then switch to firing at the 2 enemy mechs rather than the order you've given him. So they're not suicidal to that point. They will adjust. They did ask, could they have, one person did ask, could they have examples of difficulty options? Can they be adjusted on the fly during missions, or can they be only done from the main menu? Russ did state that this might change, but there won't be a traditional easy, medium, hard system for difficulty. It will have more of a focus on the AI learning your selection of missions, your loadout and type of missions, though this could change, and it is mostly based on your reputation. As your reputation increases, the types of missions you can do will have higher reputations themselves, and that will determine the kind of enemies and the difficulty that you will encounter. So, yeah, kind of like BattleTech with the skull system, I guess. The higher the skulls, the more difficult the mission will be, that kind of thing. But I think that's something that just remains to be seen properly later on. Will the AI be able to armor roll and prioritize shielding? Apparently they did have a system like this in, but the enemy did try to torso twist and stuff like that to avoid damage, but it made them perform very strangely, and I imagine AI were just constantly like turning left and right, looking like, but never firing on you, that kind of thing. So for now, the system's been removed. The best you can have is that if you're, say there's a marauder that's your target and it's firing at a mech, you open up on his right side, he will then turn to face you, rather than continuing to fire on the target that he was firing at, because it's now registered a lot of damage from the right hand side and the person who hit it, so it will turn to face that target. It still doesn't mean that the right side is completely protected, but I guess it means more of the mech is on show and it's now firing at you, so you might not be as quick to you know, call out and hit a specific location. Will enemies have a chain of command and react to changes in it? Like Halo, killing an elite would cause the grunts to panic. There is no system in place such as that. The only thing they mentioned was that maybe lighter units will try to disengage and retreat a little when all of the larger units, heavy, medium, and assault, are destroyed, but nothing that in depth. Can we disable the AI instead of killing them? Basically, no. They can't even eject at this point, so expect, unless this changes further down the line, of course, a lot of this stuff could be subject to change, of course, but apparently, if you blow all the weapons off a mech, it will just run around and probably just smash into stuff and crash into you until you blow it up, basically. So there's no realistic sense of enemy pilots deciding that they're going to leave the field or try to eject. Currently. Could change. Will enemy AI get upgraded weapons, or is it stock for all of them? Apparently, every procedurally generated mission that you take on, enemies will be stock loadout. The variant will obviously change what they have, but you won't be encountering enemies that suddenly have unique loadouts or anything like that. Story missions, on the other hand, you may come across enemies who have better equipment or different loadouts for, you know, say having a, I don't know, like a Gauss rifle equipped hunchback, for instance, or something like that. Even though it might be a 4G, or something that's all laser vomit when it should have had like a bunch of ballistics, that kind of thing. Will the AI take into account damage you do or allow to do? Yeah, this question was basically the AI will take into account damage to structures you are tasked with destroying and will aggro. So if you have a mission to destroy a facility and the defenders are fighting you and you start blowing up the objective buildings, they will focus you. Basically, it's all to do with the aggro system. How complex will the command system be for Lancemates compared to MechWarrior 4 as a reference? It'll be pretty similar to older titles, so expect very basic command system. How will the AI react to certain builds and tactics? If you have LRM units sitting in the back, will lights try to flank around and hit them? Again, it's the aggro system. If the LRM mechs are doing all the damage, the AI will fire on the LRM mechs. If you're at the front firing at them, doing an equal spread of damage, the units will spread out what their targets are, basically. Are AI Lancemates more like MechWarrior 4's and BattleTech's, where they're just a sound set and a name, or are they more like MechWarrior 3's, where they comment on events and objectives? Lancemates will have limited interactivity during missions. Some mission Lancemates might speak during story missions, but they're just sound bites like MechWarrior 4 and BattleTech. Retaliation AI. Basically, if you shoot a friendly AI in the back too many times, will they turn around and shoot you? The answer to that is see what happens. So I guess yes. I guess maybe you can get blown up by all of your alliance mates if you start trying to kill one of them. How does the AI handle visual and sensor differences? Will there be opportunities for you to stealth around in light mechs? The AI will use the sensor system, but it's more of a sight cone. It can be affected by weather, ECM, and other external factors. They have an awareness system and will react to stimuli, and if it can become aware of your location or of a friendly being destroyed, it will react to that. However, the guy in charge, Anders, of the AI, he did say that it's pretty hard to stealth in a giant mech. I know what the player was asking. Would it be possible to kind of skirt around and use terrain to mask their visual movement as well as their sensors? I guess I would say that's probably possible, but then I'm not working on this AI system, so I don't know. It sounds pretty straightforward though. Will there be different skill levels depending on the enemy fort, like worse skill for pirates? This was answered again. Yes, pirates will be worse than merc units and house units. Does the vehicle, infantry, and VTOL AI have a much more simpler set of rules compared to the mech AI? And is it possible to transpose the mech AI onto vehicles to make them more potent? They do have a simpler AI. Vehicles are essentially dumber than mechs in the short term. They won't move as effectively and act as more fodder and a bit more flavour than the main event of a mission. But this isn't final, and the vehicle AI may improve before release. Will different enemy types and factions have semi-predictable strategies that differ from other groups? I think that they're talking about the idea of having, like, this house likes to fight this way, and that house likes to fight this way. It's something they haven't looked into, but it's an interesting idea. Does the automatic experience gain incentivize players to set up for enemies or allies to get kill shots in order to accelerate that skill gain? Now, this was going back to the FTL thing I mentioned earlier. Your AI don't need to get the kill shots to improve their firing skill, for instance. They just need to fire the weapon. If they hit, that helps as well for accuracy. But no, every action they take will improve their skills. Is there a plan for persistent enemies, for example, like Shadow of Mordor, where an enemy can return and be more potent if you don't completely kill them? It's a cool concept, but since you have the setup of story missions and you have random procedural missions, it's not really a system that they can input. I can understand why. Like Shadow of Mordor just has like maps, and those maps have that information, whereas this is procedurally generating stuff. I can understand that. Will there be Easter egg responses from AI if we do particularly off-the-wall decisions and succeed and fail in particular actions? That's more down to specific mission designer if they want to add that, but it's more of an end-of-project thing rather than something they've done already. Can EAI utilize jump jets for navigation? Yes. More of a challenge because it's much more complex to get them to do certain actions like jumping on top of a building for a better shot, that kind of thing. They aren't sure yet how far they can push it before release, but the AI will be using jump jets to jump to different locations, to jump over you as a target, to jump toward targets, to navigate the map. They can do different actions such as that, yes. Is there pilot attributes shown on pilot profiles hiring hall that will define their behavior influence? Short answer is yes, there was nothing else to that. If the player damages a specific component too often during missions, will the enemy AI try to reinforce that component on their mechs over the course of the campaign? No. Do your lance mates... does your lance mate's personality affect how they behave? No. Basically, it's down to their skills. Several of these questions were asked in different ways and answered in slightly different ways, but essentially... AI is mostly dictated by the aggro system, and AI-friendly pilots do not act in any specific way. It's basically just down to their skills. Will the player be able to bring vehicles to complement his lance and platoon? For story missions, I think this has been asked before anyway. Story missions, yes, there will be friendly vehicles, but you won't be able to buy, say, a lance of Manticore tanks, unfortunately. They'll just be there during missions, and they'll be friendlies, but you can't order them around or anything like that. How does the game know when to scale up or down difficulty? Your reputation will do that. Higher rep means higher difficulty missions, lower rep means easier missions. What about bosses? Story missions have bosses, random missions do not. Can you use tactics such as attacking an enemy to force them to draw friendlies to them and thus bring them into an ambush location that you've picked? They're sure that you'll be able to do that, dragging enemies into more favourable positions so you can jump them, essentially. They wouldn't be surprised to see players exploiting that reaction system of the AI. Will any of this AI work carry over into MWO, such as escort missions, that kind of thing? No, it's pretty unlikely to see it in MechWarrior Online. Russ did mention if there's a sequel to MechWarrior Online, that's something they could look into, but not in this current iteration now. If there is an escort mission, will the escort react to what's going on, or will they keep moving to their destination? They're avoiding escort missions in MechWarrior 5. The reason is most people hate escort missions, and they're focusing on better mission types. Can you hire Aerotech in MechWarrior 2 as an AI? No, unfortunately not. Will Ace AI pilots have more dangerous mech loadouts? Apparently, yes. This one's a little confusing. Apparently, we'll have quirked out weapons, better equipment, meaning you can get better salvage. I don't know if he means higher rep missions just mean you encounter enemies that have better stock loadouts, or whether you'll meet enemies that have better unique loadouts. I don't quite know that one. And last one, what was the biggest challenge you faced in building the AI? And apparently the biggest challenge they had was having mechs behave consistently in a matter that it was believable based on their weight and their loadout. They had issues with pathfinding, with them getting stuck on buildings and little parts of the maps. In combat, they only focus one target sometimes, or they refuse to focus other targets. Tweaking it over many iterations. It's been quite a grueling process, but they have finally got it to a point where, with still some minor tweaking here and there, it's to a level that they like. Essentially, though, the mechs you encounter should act according to their loadout, so you as a player will be able to better react to them and apply tactics depending on what the enemy will be bringing to the fight. So. Yeah, so that was that. That was the AI AMA. It felt shorter than the previous ones, but some interesting things. The aggro system there gives us a clearer idea of how we can expect the AI to act in missions. We now know that our lance mates, when we're playing on our own or with just a couple of friends, how they're going to improve, and we've also learnt that. Enemies will be unique for story missions, and proc gen missions we can expect just to see, your standard fare. So yeah, some good information there, and yeah, it was a good AMA. So thanks everyone for listening. I hope that's answered some of your questions. Let me know what you think below about certain things that they've answered. Obviously, there will be another AMA. That will be happening in the North American time zone, so there might be some other questions there, so check out anyone who's doing those as a roundup, see if there's any extra information. They may have answered the question differently there, or been a little more clearer. So yeah, thanks for watching everyone, or listening I guess. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Bye!